Oh my God.
All righty.
Well, welcome. What happened?
I see you guys.
Yeah, I see you.
Okay. Was everyone able to unmute themselves? Or yeah, Devorah, that worked for you? You were able to unmute it?
Mendy.
It was easy.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. I've been.
Hello. Hi.
Hey. You. Hey. You're here. Hello.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes to 7, so we're going to be starting shortly.
Okay.
Everything works? You can hear me?
Yeah.
Great. This is wonderful. We're going to have a lot of fun today in a short amount of time.
Hi.
Is it too early to eat matzah?
Not tonight. Matzah's tomorrow night.
Oh.
Yisrael, tomorrow, try to make sure not to eat matzah until nightfall. From when you wake up in the morning, save it. Save the best part for the night.
Okay.
All right.
I thought it was
What are we
Tuesday and
doing?
Wednesday.
Devorah, you can't unmute. There we go. I think Devorah. Oh, now speak now, Devorah.
The what?
He's talking.
Oh.
Devorah, can you hear us now?
There she is.
1 second. Caleb, Selma, are you guys good? You could do it on the chat. There's a chat box on the bottom.
We're here.
Great, great, awesome. Just making sure everything's working for you.
Jeannie, say hi.
Hey, Jeannie.
Hear you. Say it again. Hi.
Alrighty, very good. Okay, Devorah, you
Hey.
are having trouble unmuting yourself. I unmute right now, to be honest. If you're using a different device used in the past, sometimes it makes you tell them how you want to have your sound work with making sure that your device is connected. Maybe what I would do, Devorah, is leave the meeting and then come back in. And sometimes when you come back in, it will ask you if you want your sound to be connected or something.
Oh.
All right, we'll start in about 30 seconds.
Scoot over so I can see you.
Hey, guys in the car, Yossi and Mendel. Good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
All righty, we will begin.
Am I working now? Am I working?
You're working, Devorah. Yes, I hear you.
Okay, and now you can hear my cat, so now I'm going to mute again.
Great. Okay, I'm actually going to put everybody on mute for so that we hopefully there won't be any other noise in the background. Mayan, are you still there? Did I lose you? I think I may have lost you. Okay, Irina, how are you?
Yeah. I'm here.
Good to see you, Irina, all the way from, where are you now? Ukraine?
Yeah. I'm
Wow,
in
okay.
Kiev. I'm in Kiev.
In Kiev. Okay, I'm going to mute you, Irene. All righty. Okay. So happy, almost Passover, everybody. We're so happy to be here. We're going to try to get it all in. Alex, how you doing? You could just,
I'm good. I'm good.
You're
It's
good.
to see
Awesome.
everyone.
Okay. What was that?
I said it's good to see everyone.
Yeah. Okay. So, being that everyone's on mute, what you can do is you can type on the chat if you have anything you want to say specifically. Feel free to put it into the chat at any point, and I will be trying to monitor that. We're going to try in just a half hour to get a lot in, so I'm going to be moving and pretty quickly. But if you have questions or anything, feel free to type it in the chat. and I'll try to address it. Tomorrow night is the big night, the night of Passover. It's very exciting, of course. This year, however, is different. We know that the first night of Passover, the children ask the 4 questions, and they ask, why is this night different than all other nights? Now they may ask, why is this year different than all other years? But before we get to tomorrow night, I just want to touch a few things pretty quickly. Some of you may be familiar with some of the traditions leading into tomorrow night. Passover is a time that we have a lot of preparations that come with the holiday. We do a lot of cleaning and a lot of cooking. And what's important on Passover is to get rid of what's called the chametz, the unleavened bread, any bread, cookies, cake, pastries, all of those goodies. We refrain from having them for the duration of the holiday of Passover. Tonight is when the first actual tradition with a blessing begins. Tonight is when we do what's called the searching for the chametz. We actually have the tradition to take a candle, a wooden spoon, and a feather. And we use these 3 items to search for chametz. We're not going to speak about that at great length, but we do that actually, and we say a special prayer afterwards, saying how we're getting rid of all of our chametz. That is tonight. I'm going to be doing that, God willing, shortly after this class. Anytime after 8:15 tonight in Springfield is appropriate to do that, searching for the chametz. Tomorrow morning, very important, we stop eating the chametz in Springfield from 10:50 a.m. No more eating any of those delicious breads. But then we have to get rid of it. We burn the chametz by 11:55. By 11:55 tomorrow is when we do the burning of the chametz. It will definitely be different for us this year, being that we won't have other people with us. We'll be doing it ourselves on our back porch. If you do not have a fire and you have chametz you want to burn, the best way to do it is simply without clogging your toilet, flushing it down the toilet. If that is not an option for you for some reason, if you soak it in bleach very well, it makes the chametz, the bread, not edible, and then you are good because you got rid of it. And you could say the special prayer that we say along with burning or getting rid of the chametz. But let's move along to the evening. The evening is an exciting time. That is when Passover begins. So, I want to begin with the story of the married couple. They're married already for 25 years or so. And the father calls up his son one day who's living in a different city. And he says, hey, Joe. He says, hey, Joni. He says, how are you? He says, I have important news to tell you. We are going through a divorce, me and your mom. He goes, what? You've been married for so long. What's going on? And he says, don't ask any questions. Not up for negotiations. We're not changing our mind. I already made up my mind. So the son says, hold on. Don't do anything yet. Hangs up the phone, calls up his sister, and he says, you will never believe it. Mom and dad are going through a divorce after all these years. She goes, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? He says, oh, I have an idea. She tells her brother, Passover is coming soon. Let's get on the plane. Let's come there for Passover. And we will tell them not to do anything until we come there. We come there, we'll already see the situation. Hopefully we'll be able to make peace between mom and dad. We have no idea what in the world is going on. So the son calls back his father and he says, Dad, don't do anything until me and our sister come. We're coming for Passover. He says, okay, no problem. He gets off the phone. He calls his wife. He says, honey, you will never believe it. This year, our children are coming for Passover, and they are paying for the airfare. All airfare is paid for because we know that Passover is a time that we spend the holiday together. So, of course, that was only a joke. God forbid, no divorces, and we shouldn't have to do any tricks to get our children to come. Usually, we have Passover with the family and everything. However, this year, it is definitely going to be different. The Seder, most of us will be having by ourselves or with our immediate family who's living with us. We will not doing those large Seders with friends and family and all the excitement that we have very often. So it's definitely going to be different, but it's important to mention that different sometimes is good. And in this case, the fact that we will be having it by ourselves has an advantage. You know, the first year when the Jewish people were leaving Egypt, they were having the Passover Seder before they left, and they were having it by themselves. They did not have it together with anybody else. They had to, in fact, stay in their homes. The verse says, do not leave your homes. God told the Jewish people while he was going around with that final plague, he was skipping over the Jewish homes, and he told the Jews, do not leave your home. So I will make sure to skip over you, and you will not be, of course, hurt by this plague. So we're following, or we're copying some good history, the first time the Jewish people celebrated. But since then, it was always done with family and friends. One of the interesting reasons I heard why the first year they did it in such a way, Passover by themselves without family and friends, because leaving Egypt was right before when the Jewish people formally became a nation. They became a nation by Mount Sinai just a little while later. And that was an important message that God wanted to tell the Jewish people. That before you become a nation, and once you become a nation, you may think that I'm just part of this big group, this big nation, this big religion, whatever word you want to use for it, and I'm not as important. But God was telling them, before I make you a nation, I want you to know first and foremost, you're an important person, you're an important individual. And that's why he first had them have their private Seder. So we get to tap into that a little bit this year when we're not going to be having that large public Seder. Now, when the holiday of Passover comes, what we're primarily going to speak about, like I said, we don't have so much time, is the actual Seder itself, some of the important things to make sure we do, and some of the meaning behind it. It's important to actually do as much as possible of the Seder once it is completely nightfall, which in Springfield is at 8:13 tomorrow evening. It's important to make sure we have the matzah and the wine and the other important things after 8:13 p.m. When the time is here, it says that there is a spiritual energy that is that exists, that we're able to reconnect to the times of the past that we're celebrating today, whatever it is. So by Passover, we want to reconnect to that energy from when God took us out of Egypt. There was a major revelation of godliness. There was major miracles that took place. And we want to connect to these ideas this year on Passover as well. So these are special ideas. We know that the time of Passover is a time filled with miracles. So I want to, before even continuing, ask God to perform a miracle. Let us all have the greatest miracle that currently we're all going through difficulties. I want to ask a prayer that those that need help with anything, primarily health, if you know anybody that needs a complete refuah shlema, a blessing for health due to the coronavirus or anything else that is going on, let us say, amen, that they should be able to have the complete blessings. And of course, any other difficulties that people are going through now because of the coronavirus, may they have all the blessings. I also want to mention that today is the third Chabad Rebbe's, the Tzemach Tzedek, his yahrzeit, his day of passing is today, his anniversary of the day of his passing. And there's a famous thing that the Tzemach Tzedek said, that the verses from the book of Psalm, from King David, are extremely powerful. And he says, if only you would know what powers of the verses of Psalms have, you would be saying it constantly. So it's definitely something special when we want to ask for a blessing. A lot of times what we do, the tradition is we say a chapter or some verses from the book of Psalms. So it's very important in this time for everybody to add in verses from the book of Psalm, the book of Tehillim from King David. So after the class, more than welcome to look up online any of the verses, and you can say a chapter, whichever chapter you would like. Okay, let's get back to it. So this, being that we're all going to be having the Seder ourselves, something that is special is that there will probably be the most actual Seders being performed. Usually people come together, so there's less Seders. For example, here in Springfield, every family has to perform their own. There'll be less people coming together, joining any large Seders with families and friends. So there'll be a lot of Seders. That's, of course, very special. What does the actual word Seder mean? Seder means order. Anybody in here knows a little bit of Hebrew? Hakol b'Seder. Everything is okay. Everything's in order. Passover has the Seder because we have a special order tonight in what we have to do. This order is going to be a little bit unique. We're not going to go through the whole thing in order, but for those that want to follow the order, the Haggadah, the special booklet, the special book of all the traditions of the night has the whole order in it. But what I want to say is that by Passover, we're told something interesting. In general, whenever we want to grow, it's important to focus on growing, but one step at a time. But Passover, we have to leave Egypt, Yitziat Mitzrayim. And the word Egypt in Hebrew also comes from the word Meitzar, which Meitzar means a limitation. And we really have to, it's an opportunity that we're able to tap into that leaving of Egypt that happened many years ago, and it can have an actual effect on us by us leaving our limitations. Before we get into the actual details of the Seder, I just want to share one story, which is actually one of my favorite stories. I've shared it many times. There was a Jew who went over to the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, a great, great rabbi. And he heard about these great stories of people getting this revelation of Elijah. We know that Elijah comes to the Brit Milah, the circumcision, of course, to our Passover Seder. We know we open the door for Elijah, but we don't see Elijah. There are certain people that have what's called the revelation of Elijah. They get to see Elijah. So he said, I want to merit to see Elijah too. So he went to the Baal Shem Tov, his teacher, his Rebbe, and he said, what can I do to see Elijah? I'm going to try to make this story short due to lack of time. And the Baal Shem Tov gave him a whole list of things to do. And he said that when he completed his list, he said, come back to me. So he did it all. He came back to me. He said, listen, I want you to go to the edge of this forest and come there. There's a home over there before Shabbat. And spend Shabbat over there, and then you'll see Elijah. He didn't know what was going to be in that home, so he had to come prepared. So he brought all of his Shabbat delicacies, his wine and his bread and all of the fish and the meat and all the food. And he comes, he knocks on the door, and there's a nice, poor Jewish family there. And he says, can I come in? Can I spend Shabbat with you? They say, sure, we don't really have anything, but you're welcome to join us. So he says, don't worry, I have it all. And he brings out all of his delicacies, and they have a wonderful Shabbat together. And long story short, he leaves after Shabbat disappointed because he did not see Elijah. He comes back to his teacher the next day. He says, what's going on? I thought I would see Elijah. The Baal Shem Tov told him, go back next Shabbat and you will see Elijah. Same thing happens. He comes, doesn't see Elijah. Now he's getting very frustrated. He comes back to his Rebbe, and he says, I thought I would get to see Elijah. What's going on? He said, okay, you really want to see Elijah? This week, you'll do the same thing for Shabbat, and you'll get to see Elijah. However, before you knock on the door, when you arrive there, I want you to stand outside and listen in, eavesdrop on the family before you knock. He said, okay, no problem. So he gets there, and he decides to do what the Baal Shem Tov said. He has all his stuff, and he comes. Before he knocks on the door, he listens in. And he listens in, and he hears one of the children telling the parents, Mommy, is Elijah coming this week as well? And when he heard that, he understood that the Baal Shem Tov was telling him that he is Elijah, because we all have Elijah inside of us, and we all are able to bring out that Elijah. And that's our job, to bring out Elijah inside of us. Of course, Elijah exists, and of course, we, God willing, will merit to see Elijah, maybe with the coming of Mashiach. But what's important to us is to focus on, what's important is for us to focus on the Elijah inside of us. And when the story of when the holiday of Passover is here, we have the Seder, we're reminded of this, because we all have that Elijah. And we all have to bring that out. How to bring that out? So in that story, the bring it out was to help someone else, helping that family. And we really are very, especially in these difficult times, we're all able to be others, Elijah's, whether it's by reaching out to them, checking in how they're doing, calling up a friend, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was very special in general, especially when it comes to the holiday of Passover. So let's get to the Seder. I like that, Yisrael. Keep the clapping coming. So, what goes on by the Passover? We all know there's a whole list of different things that we do by the Passover Seder. By the Passover Seder, we'll go through quite a few of them. We only have a couple minutes left. But I want to go in, what I want to do is in order of importance from the Jewish perspective, and as follows. There is one requirement, which is what we call biblical. What requirement is, two requirements that are biblical. One is eating the matzah. That is a biblical requirement to eat the matzah. I'll say the second one, and then I'll elaborate on the matzah. The second one is, in Hebrew, what's called v'higadata levincha, which means to say to your children, to tell over the story. Those are the two biblical requirements. So if any of us have children with us at our Seder, it is important to remember that they are not just there enjoying as well, but they are an important part, and we have to prepare accordingly. Before the Seder, we should think, what are we going to tell our children? How are we going to bring the messages from Passover in a relevant way to them? What portions of the Seder are we going to emphasize, and so on? Because that is actually a biblical requirement. And of course, the first one which I mentioned is the matzah. Matzah is very, very important. It's important to eat the size of just over half a matzah. So you guys, hopefully everyone here has those shmur matzah, the handmade special shmur matzah, just like the Jewish people had when they left Egypt quite a few years ago, 3,000 plus years ago. That is what's important to have by the Seder, at least over half of one of those matzahs. You could have more the merrier, but at least half a matzah. Some people here, I'm not worried, they're going to have way more than half a matzah tomorrow night. Now, that is very, very important. Regarding the matzah, there's a lot of lessons which we could focus on. The Rebbe actually made a campaign to help out and bring matzah to as many Jewish people as we're able to, which is why I tried going around Springfield and giving matzah, and we went actually to over 200 homes, giving them special handmade shmur matzah for Passover. Now, when it comes to the Rebbe's campaigns, it's interesting. He always focuses on what the Rebbe feels is most important. So, for example, when it comes to the holiday of Sukkot, the Rebbe focuses on shaking the lulav and etrog. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, who knows? What is the most important? Type it in the chat. One word. What is the most important thing to do on Rosh Hashanah? Is it dipping the apple in honey? Is it going to synagogue? What is the number one most important thing? Please feel free to write it in the chat. What is the most important thing to do on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year? The most important thing, of course, as everybody knows, is to listen to the blowing of the shofar. Very good, Chuck. That is correct. Blowing of the shofar. Yes, you guys, some of you are looking weird to type in the chats. It's for some of you that are new to Zoom. No worries. Blowing the shofar, that is what is most important. The Rebbe made a special campaign to make sure we go out and blow the shofar for as many people as possible. When it comes to Passover, the number one biblical requirement is eating the matzah. That's why the Rebbe did that campaign. Matzah also resembles something extremely important, an important, deeper message. Feel free to give this over to anybody that you are sharing the Seder with. And that is that matzah is flat, unlike bread. The difference is that bread rises. When we let our ego rise, that is that chametz. That's what we got to get rid of by Passover. But when we are humble, that is what matzah resembles. And that is an important thing to have if you want to go on any sort of successful journey, especially spiritually, if you want to grow. Step number one, you have to start off with humility. And we do not have to elaborate on humility. during this crazy coronavirus, COVID-19, this crazy pandemic we are suffering at the moment. Many of us are forcefully being put through humility. But it's important to focus on that when the holiday of Passover comes around. Okay, next we have rabbinical requirements. So it's important to have them, but they're not the same level. I just want to make that differentiation because, for example, if someone only had enough money to get either the matzah or the wine or any of the other things, matzah is most important. But what are the other things? The other thing very important to have is 4 cups of wine or grape juice. Get that kosher wine or grape juice. Very important to have 4 cups of wine. The reason we have 4 cups, for those that are curious about that, the 4 cups is because there are 4 times that God uses a different word regarding the redemption of the Jewish people, taking them out of Egypt. The 4 Hebrew words are v'hotzeti, v'hitzalti, v'goalti, v'lakachti. It means I will take you out, I will redeem you. It's 4 different ways of saying the same idea. So for each one of the 4, we have a cup. That's one of the many, many reasons, but that's the main reason why we have the 4 cups. Very important. It's supposed to be around 5 ounces each cup. Important to try to drink the whole cup, not just a little sip. Steve is wondering, so little. But yes, that is the requirement. Now, it's best to do it in order. So if you have the Haggadah, you could follow along. It says we're to drink cup 1, we're to drink cup 2, and so on. But the important thing is to have all 4 cups. Next is the maror, the bitter herbs. Very important to have some of the bitter herbs. What most people will use today as bitter herbs, we use 2 things. There is different traditions. The first one is lettuce, romaine lettuce. Some of you may be thinking, why is romaine lettuce bitter? I usually enjoy that in my salad. Well, the truth is that if you would leave it growing and not take it off when we take it off, it would become pretty bitter. Some of you may actually have tasted the white in the middle, especially if it's sat in your fridge a little too long. Sometimes that gets a little bitter as well. So it's important to have that. And we shred horseradish. Well, I don't mean the ready-made horseradish for our gefilte fish, but we actually take a root from the horseradish and we try to shred it. So that is the maror. Very important to have that, because a part of the Seder is to remind us of the bitterness that our forefathers went through, our ancestors. If we don't remember what they went through, it's hard to feel the true redemption. In general, it's a good thing to realize that a lot of times, if we want to be able to understand someone else, we have to really feel their pain. And once in a while, we have a custom, not always that we're doing the painfulness things, but every once in a while, we do focus on the pain. So that is the mar. After that, there is the sandwich, the famous Hillel sandwich. Back in the day, this sandwich used to be with a nice piece of meat in there, part of the sacrifice of the Paschal sacrifice. Now we do it without it. When it was, we only have the matzah and the lettuce, that maror, in between the matzah sandwich. It's important to have that. And then there is the main rest of the tradition, which is the Seder. For the Seder, of course, there is 15 steps to the Seder. We are not going to mention all 15. That was 5, by the way, but if you times that by 3, that's 15. So we're not going to have we're not going to go through all 15 of the steps, but in the Haggadah, it's all clearly there. Now, if anybody wants a literal Haggadah, we have them free of charge in Springfield. If you would rather me email you one that you can download and print, of course, I'm more than happy to do that. In addition, any of the items that you need for Passover, whether that means the matzah, the maror, the wine, or any of the other things we're going to mention shortly that go on the beautiful Seder plate, please, please, please feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to help everyone with all of the Passover needs, but preferably if you can message us tonight, right after the class, so we can have it ready for you for tomorrow. Now, the Passover plate, I want to go through real quickly. The Passover plate has, the matzah is number 1. We have the tradition of putting matzah, and then you could take any cloth, you could take a napkin, put it between the 3 matzahs that we lay on top of each other. That is the start off of the Seder plate. It's the 3 matzahs. The 3 matzahs actually are corresponding to the three types of Jewish people: the Kohen, the Levite, and the Israelite. And what we're doing by the Passover Seder is we're unifying all three groups, all three people, because we are really all one. A Jew is a Jew. It doesn't matter any sort of group, affiliation, etc. What's most important is how we are all one. Once you have those three matzahs lined up, we put another napkin on top. You do not need for the Seder plate anything fancy. If you do have a traditional plate from your grandparents or from your parents, or you got any other place, that is beautiful. That is excellent, but it's not a necessity. But if you have those three matzahs, then what we'll do is put a napkin on top of that. If you have a Seder plate that does not go on top of the matzah, it's a fancy plate on its own, you are allowed to put it on the side of the matzah. Top right of the Seder plate. What do we put? We put a zeroah. That is that chicken neck. You could really take any bone. It's supposed to have we take of a chicken as a general tradition. The neck of the chicken is a general tradition, but you could take any short bone, any small bone. Yisrael, please do not steal the dog's bone. Thank you. Any bone, and put it onto the top right corner of the Seder plate. We do not eat this. So we actually take it, and the real tradition is to take the bone and to roast it. Before the holiday begins, we roast it typically, and after you roast it, you could put it on the top right corner. But the top left corner is a hard-boiled egg. The reason we put the top right corner, that chicken neck, is to remind us of the Passover sacrifice that they had. But the reason we do the top left corner, that egg, is because we have to remember the general korban chagiga, the sacrifice that they brought by every holiday. So we have a hard-boiled egg to remind us of that. We actually eat it later on by the meal. You are more than welcome to eat that egg. It does not have to be a shank bone, Joe, but that is a good question. That is the tradition, though. Either a shank bone or a chicken neck. Either one of the two. That is a very good point. Preferred option. I just try to make people's life a little simpler sometimes. So that's why I said any bone really could work. After you got the top right is that bone, the top left is the hard-boiled egg. You got the center in the middle and then the center on bottom. Both of them, you put the same thing. You put that maror, whether you're using the lettuce or the horseradish, you put it there for the bitter herbs. One of them is for the bitter herbs by itself, and the other one is for the bitter herbs that go in the sandwich. And then the bottom right is the charoset, delicious part of Passover. If you did not make your own charoset, this is the year to try that. Very easy. Take some apples. Do not dice it too small, but dice it up. If you make it too small, it will be just juice. But you want to make it small. Some people like it with a little pear, and get some good nuts in there. We personally like walnuts. Grind the walnuts and a little bit of sweet wine or grape juice. And depending on your liking, do that any mix, and it should be delicious. And then the bottom left is the karpas. Karpas is a vegetable. We personally have the custom to use either an onion or a potato, but really any vegetable works. And the only reason we have that is for the children to be wondrous and to ask and to be curious. We have that, and towards the beginning of the Seder, we take that and we dip it into the salt water. Important, another detail for the Seder is to have salt water. That's simple. You take a bowl of water and you pour salt in there, and you take that vegetable right after you do the kiddush, you wash your hands, and then you get to the karpas. When you take that vegetable and you will dip it in salt water, you make the regular blessing on a vegetable, no unique blessing. And the reason we do that is to raise the curiosity of the children. They should be like, hey, we don't usually do that. Why do that tonight? We want to get them in that mode of asking questions, because questions is really what the night is about. Like we start off with, we said the biblical requirement is to teach the children. And a good way to teach them is if they ask questions. So I want to finish off. We literally have about 3 minutes left. So I'm going to do real quickly. Firstly, I'm going to start off with, I want to go over a quick checklist that you could all make sure you have. If you want me to send this to you afterwards, just ask me. Make sure you got that matzah, that delicious kosher wine or grape juice, hard-boiled egg, a roasted piece of meat, poultry, a chicken neck, a shank neck, any of those things. Romaine lettuce for the maror. You could have some horseradish if you want in there as well. Charoset, very important. A vegetable like the potato or onion that we mentioned. Salt water. And then I want to mention the Haggadah that we said. And then another thing that I did not say is before we start the meal, it's important, like every good Jewish Shabbat or holiday meal, we start off with lighting the candles. That's how we bring the beautiful light into the home. We have to light the candles. So that is first and foremost important thing, is to bring in that good positive energy that lights hold in them and bring that into the room. So you want to have some candles. You could use tea lights. They work perfectly. And if you need tea lights, we're more than happy to give them to you as well. Of course, just feel free to ask us afterwards. Another thing I want to say is we all know that the way we finish a Seder is with the words, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. Every year, this is the tradition. This year, it is even more felt by many people because of all the difficulties that is going on. We all really want next year us to be way before next year us to be well in Jerusalem with the coming of Mashiach. So this year, I think it's important to mention that the focus of the holiday in general is how God redeemed the Jewish people and took us out of slavery, out of exile, out of Egypt. And really, that's what we are all waiting for today, for God to redeem the Jewish people once again. So when we say that at the end of the Seder, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year we should be in Jerusalem, we could have really put the focus on that from the beginning. From the beginning, when we start off the Seder, whether with our children, whoever it is, we could tell them, God makes miracles. God redeemed the Jewish people once. That's what we're celebrating back in the day. And he could do miracles again and again. And God willing, firstly, he'll take away this terrible coronavirus and bring back some normalcy to the world and bring healing to all those in need. But of course, most important, bring about the final redemption with Mashiach. I want to finish off with a story. I wanted to do Q&A, but I think we're going to log out pretty shortly. So if you have a question, please ask now. Thank you, Devorah, for that. Amen. I want to finish off with a good story that I also really like, and you could share it at your Seder. So the story is as follows. There's, so many great stories when it comes to Passover, but the thing that I want to say is as follows. We know that Moses was chosen to be the Redeemer to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. But the story goes, why was he chosen? He used to be a shepherd. A shepherd cares for his flock. And it says that Moses was taking his flock, and as he was taking his flock, one of the sheep left the flock, and he ran for miles and miles and miles to chase that flock. In fact, where he went off with that sheep is where the burning bush story came around, but we'll keep that for a different time. And God said as follows, when I see someone that cares for every person, or every sheep, not just every person, so much, he is able to be the Redeemer, and I'm going to choose him to lead the Jewish people. And that's really a message that we have to know. We sometimes could be like, yeah, I like helping in general, or this or that. But we have to realize that we have to care about each and every person. Of course, that's connected to Passover because Moses is the one who helped take the Jewish people out of Egypt. He led the way. So it's a good story about Moses. Teach that lesson to your children, to your friends, to anybody, that you have to care about everyone without exceptions. I want to wish everyone a happy, healthy Passover. Thank you all so much for joining, taking from your time. It was pretty brief, pretty short. You asked if Safta is here. No, unfortunately, this year we are here alone. We do not have any of my grandmothers that have been with us in the past. Of course, my grandfather passed away, but not even my immediate family. None of them have made it here due to the terrible pandemic that is going on, but we're happy to celebrate. Hopefully, like we said, next year in Jerusalem. We hope this year, we still got about 24 hours to be in Jerusalem with the coming of Mashiach, and then we'll be all together, not just with my immediate family or with all of our friends, but we'll really be able to enjoy the Passover, and maybe then we'll be able to bring that beautiful Passover sacrifice and be able to thank God for all the good that they have done. Thank you all for joining. What a pleasure. Hope you enjoyed, learned something, gained something, and all the best. Chag Sameach. Please let us know if you need anything. Take care. Happy and kosher Passover.